nights I stay up, cashing in my bad luck. Some nights I call it a draw. Some nights I wish that my lips could build a castle. Some nights I wish they just fall off. But I still wake up, I still see your ghost. Oh Lord, I'm still not sure what I stand for. Oh, what do I stand for? What do I stand for? Most nights I don't know anymore.
Let me tell you something about PewDiePie.
Oh, hey there. My name is Professor Bartos, and the first thing on our regimen today, the Mexican-American War. The Mexican-American War was a war between the United States and the Mexicans, which was caused by Americans beginning our western expansion into their land. Us being Americans, stubborn as we are, we ignored the Mexicans' demands, like speaking Spanish and slavery. We continued to do these things which upset the Mexicans. One thing led to another, and shots were first fired at the Alamo, and the war began. Soon after that, American troops got involved, and the war was won on Mexican soil. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed, giving us our southwestern parts of our country today: Texas, California, New Mexico, etc.
Get up in there, man! Get pasa, güey. I ain't gonna see you. It's my land, man!
This new land acquired proved to be more of a curse than a blessing. Although this gave the nation the opportunity to expand, it proved to be greatly controversial through the nation about the laws that would be enforced on this newly obtained land. The South wanted to expand their slavery into this new land, but you know what? The North did not want to. They wanted to keep it peaceful, simple, equal rights. Now time for our country to attempt to resolve this conflict. Attorney Henry Clay gave his Compromise of 1850, which had 5 major parts. This compromise consisted of Cali getting into the Union as a free state. The remainder of the Mexican cession was divided into the territories of New Mexico and Utah, with no organized talk about slavery. Texas was admitted as a slave state. A new law was put in place of the Fugitive Slave Act, and slave trade was banned in the District of Columbia. However, this compromise failed, and here's why. The Fugitive Slave Act was one of the major issues with this compromise. This upset the North, because they had already given the South so many compromises before this, and now you're telling them they have to get involved with slavery? That's something they totally disallow. They allowed southern slave hunters to travel to northern free states to capture and return runaway slaves. A law was established that if you helped a slave or did not return one of them, and if they saw you, you were going to be fined $1,000 and up to 6 months in jail. The Underground Railroad, a group of abolitionists, helped many runaway slaves gain their freedom and escape slave hunters. Oh, what do you know? Super Monkey brought us a clue. Slave hunters from the South going into the North would sometimes take free Northerners, when they wouldn't get their slaves back. No wonder the North was so pissed.
You can run, but you can't hide. Boy, you know Tommy, a jolly old chap, lives down on... Oh, Crichton! Are you okay, son? Take my coat.
No, yeah, you're
Take my
Massachusetts, boy. You're free, son. Come on, we're going to freedom. Come on.
I will take you to freedom,
Let's
son.
go,
Let's go, son.
Man, how could someone do something like John Brown's raid? If there's one person like that, there's got to be more. The last thing that tipped off the South was the election of 1860 and the placement of our new president, Abraham Lincoln. This was the last reason why the South seceded from the Union, because of Lincoln's views on slavery. But the thing that really placed a big role in this election was the Lincoln-Douglas debates. This was a series of 7 debates between Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas. The issues they discussed were not only critical to the conflict of slavery, but also touched up on deeper questions that would continue to influence political discourse.
Douglas.
Now listen here, Lincoln. I demand popular sovereignty. I'm not for or against slavery, but I think people should have a choice.
I'm a puppy 17. People should have toys.
No, it's unconstitutional and morally wrong.
Goodbye, Lincoln.
Goodbye, sir.
Lincoln winning this election soon made the state of South Carolina secede from the Union, with several to follow, making a major problem, and us just inches away from a war against our own people. Just 4 months after the secession of South Carolina happened, the first shots of the long, bloody war began. The Confederate Army attacks a strategic Army stronghold, Fort Sumner. The Confederates showered a fort with over 3,000 shells in a 3.5-day period. There are no casualties, but it will be the first of many Union defeats and some of the few Confederate victories. Now time for the advantages in this war for both sides. The South had a big time advantage in this war because they were using a defensive strategy. The North had to be very offensive and go into the South, land they had never been before, while the South knew this land like the back of their hand. They also had well-trained military officers like the well-known Robert E. Lee. However, the North did indeed have more men, a navy, and a great transportation system which helped them tremendously in this war. Next on our agenda is the First Battle of Bull Run, the first major land battle which took place in Virginia, where the Union Army under Irvin McDowell marched from the Washington to face the Confederate forces. This battle was won by the Confederates, which gave the South a surge of confidence and shocked many with this unexpected victory. The Second Battle of Bull Run took place a few months later in August, where Robert E. Lee sent half of his army to take down the Union in Virginia. The Confederates also came on top of this battle and further pushed forward into the North Union Territory. Ulysses S. Grant, the Northern general, captured New Orleans in April of 1862, cutting off Southern supply routes. This would lead to the invasion of the North and the Battle of Antietam. The Union came on top of this long horrific battle, which was a major win for the North. This battle was also known as the single most bloodiest day in the war, with 23,000 casualties, and which eventually led to the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation was a written speech by President Lincoln in 1863. He claimed that all slaves in state rebellions shall be freed by January 1st of the next year.
This day of January 1st, 1863, I declare all slaves in states of rebellion shall be freed.
After the Union found success in their war strategies and were able to gain a couple victories over the Confederates, they found themselves in an intense, bloody battle at Gettysburg. In the summer of 1863, Union forces had the advantage in numbers and were able to overpower Confederate forces, but not without great loss. There were a total of 23,000 plus casualties on the Union side, and a total of 23,000 to 28,000 casualties on the Confederate side. President Lincoln then visited a battlefield a couple of days later to pay his respects by giving a speech and dedicate half of the battle as a cemetery to make sure the soldiers' sacrifice did not go unnoticed. This visit became known as the Gettysburg Address.
I'm going to dedicate this land to all these fallen soldiers as the nation's first national burial site, Gettysburg.
A couple years later, on April 9th of 1865, the long bloody Civil War had come to an end. Robert E. Lee surrendered the last major Confederate army to Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. So, basically, this war lasted a total of 4 years, and remains to this day the war with the most American casualties at 620,000. As a result of this war, the South was destroyed and left in havoc. So, it's time to rebuild. It's time for Reconstruction. After the Union won the war, the North was at an all-time high. But just 6 days later, that quickly changed, when their beloved and respected president was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth in Washington, D.C. On this night, Lincoln attended a play called Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater with his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln. Originally, Lincoln did not want to attend this play, but his wife later convinced him to go. He also decided to go with no security, which was a norm at this time period. This was a very sad day for our country, but also very unlucky, considering he died at a very, very crucial time in our country, the time of our Reconstruction.
Please come to the play.
No, Mary! I'm tired!
Come to the play.
No! I'm sorry, Mary. I'm happy I came. Thank you. Ho ho ho! Oh no.
After Lincoln died, his 13th Amendment was passed by the House of Representatives and became a law. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery and all involuntary servitude unless you committed a crime. But this becomes a horrible problem and keeps minorities oppressed for years to come. Then, his VP Andrew Johnson took over as acting president. The only bad thing about this is he was pro-South, and his vision for Reconstruction was to give the South a helping hand, with no repercussions for their actions. While they transitioned from a slave state to a free state, and gave little to no political voice for the black community. Even the South did follow the 13th Amendment. They found loopholes, known as the Black Codes, or Jim Crow laws. These Black Codes were laws passed by Southern states denying ex-slaves full civil rights that were granted to whites. It ensured a stable force to make it nearly impossible for ex-slaves to work their way out of poverty. Some examples of slave codes included they cannot own property, guns, cannot take certain jobs, some could not even vote, and still, some could not even testify against a white man in court. The next amendment put in place was the 14th Amendment. This amendment stated that all people born in the U.S. and subject to the jurisdiction are citizens of the U.S. Also, no state or territory of the U.S. can deprive anyone of life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness. After this was the 15th Amendment, which said that no government shall prevent a citizen from voting based on race, color, or previous conditions or servitude.
The war ended in a Union victory with President Lincoln being assassinated and Vice President Andrew Johnson taking office and attempting to reunite the South and North. Slavery was then abolished under the 13th Amendment, but prejudice and racism still thrived throughout the nation. President Abraham Lincoln is and will always be one of the best presidents in American history. The United States would stay a divided nation for decades to come.
Go.
The new land! Soon after that, Mexican. Why did I say Mexican?
That was nasty. Damn. Action. Crikey! Are you okay, son?